I want to talk about the Lions now. They showed grit in that game versus the 49ers. They were down for the count like 41-17 and going into the fourth, and then they piled on some points. Just showed, I mean, that was post, Coach Pleasant cussing out Jeff Okuda on the sidelines. So a lot of people are like, well, if nobody liked playing for the previous coaching administration, is this a bad look too? Are they going to want to play for them?
Here's my advice, not a bad look. One, no one's really come out and said they had a problem with it. Two, well, Akuda's out for the season anyway, so at this point it doesn't really matter. So from his standpoint, and three, to me, if he was.
Wow.
Put that up. Three, he, I think it's more than anything, it's just making sure that Akuda's accountable. Yeah, he got torched right before that. He didn't play that bad. He played poorly, but he didn't play as bad as maybe he was getting racked for on the internet. But he obviously that made it worse. Seeing him getting yelled at, and Pleasant's just holding him accountable. I mean, he was talking back to him and not listening to what he had to say, and he just telling him to do his job. With force.
Yeah, it's because he's talking back. I mean, that's your parents. You're talking back to your parents. They're going to raise their voice.
Exactly. So I don't really have a problem with it. Obviously, like it's different in college versus like professional athletes and things like that, because they are adults and professionals. And but you know what, their job is to coach them. And I think you saw the team's response. It wasn't necessarily responding to that. I don't think it was at all, but you saw that the team is bought in. You saw the team is, they're not going to fold.
A lot of people could have just fell over 41-17.
Yeah. I mean,
week one, you're like, yeah, same old Lions.
Yeah, most teams would, and I wouldn't even blame them. I mean, even other teams, not even just the Lions. So you saw some fight. You saw, I mean, obviously it was too little too late. They played horribly before that in the first half. So we saw the problems. It's an extremely flawed roster and team. However, I just think there's fight there. There's something there. I don't know if it's going to really translate to that many wins. It probably isn't, but it's something to at least be encouraged about. And if we continue to see it, obviously it's easier to fight in week 1 than it's going to be to fight in week 16, especially if this continues. But as long as we're seeing improvement and continued fight, maybe they can, against some worse teams, maybe they can
we'll notice that the culture is shifting a little bit.
Maybe they can change some close losses to maybe a few close wins. Maybe that'd be cool. Now, I'm not expecting wins. That's again, I'm still in the same boat. Expectations have not changed at all. But we'll see. It was nice to see some fight
against the 49ers.
It's a good team,
who we think are supposed to be a pretty good team.
Yep.
So I guess a lot of people are also looking at Jared Goff's inflated numbers in that game, and I would urge you to proceed with caution. Those numbers came from a prevent defense, pretty much majority of the fourth quarter. A lot of it was dink and dunk. If you look at his accuracy, something that Jared Goff was at least supposed to be, not having the cannon that Matthew Stafford did, but the accuracy usually came with it. He was missing some pretty easy flat routes. And so I would just proceed with caution. Jared Goff's numbers are going to look inflated, finishing 5th in week 1 in passing yards.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not translated to touchdowns. I mean, the weapons aren't there. It's not all his fault by any means. The receivers are terrible.
They get 68% of the completions were to running backs and tight ends.
Yeah, so, I mean, Hawkinson's probably, I mean, if you're looking at fantasy, Hawkinson's definitely a good play.
Yeah.
The backs are great in PPR, Swift and Williams probably. But I just don't, I mean, it's not going to translate to touchdowns more than likely. They're not going to be putting up, I mean, 33 points is borderline miracle in that game, the way that was going. So it'll be interesting, but I'm not, again, expectations have not changed. It's just pleasant to see. It's good to see the fact that they were able to continue to fight, because past years, last year's team would have lost 60-17. I mean, they would have just folded.
Yeah.
So.
What players jumped out to you as players that made you proud, pretty much? Players that did more than me.
I mean, you got to start with Sewell.
Yeah, taking on Nick Bosa.
Yeah, took on Nick Bosa on the move to left tackle. Obviously, they had time to prepare for it because they knew Decker was there, but he more than held his own. I expected carnage, honestly.
Yeah.
I expected it to be.
I thought Goff was going to be on his back all game.
And Bosa got the better of him a few times, especially in the run blocking. But Sewell you can see where he's elite as far as a pure talent standpoint. Obviously, he's still got to get better, a lot to improve on. He's still got to be a good amount, but it was far exceeded my expectations there. Otherwise, I mean, Hawkinson was really good.
Yeah.
Jamal
Williams, I thought
Williams was good.
Found the hole very well, just ran hard through it.
Yeah, that was good. There's not a lot on defense I can point to.
I think Jamie Collins, but he was the guy that, I mean, he had plays where he looked great, and then I saw him get pushed around a few times if you watch some replays.
Yeah, I mean, again, they were clearly outclassed from a roster standpoint, and if you're the 49ers, you're pretty unhappy about how that game ended just because they didn't finish. But it was pretty clear who the better team was up from the jump.
Yeah.
So
Kyle Shanahan was just trying to keep the same old ways.
Yeah, and, they were trying to run the clock out. They went into kind of a shell, which makes sense. But so you could see who the better team was from the beginning. But there were bright spots. Sewell's the biggest one that everybody's talking about, and I think that should continue to be talked about. I don't like the idea of him moving over to left tackle. I think we have a good enough, very borderline elite left tackle already.
Yeah.
But it's good to see. It's something, and it's good to see that he's able to flip the switch from right to left, and he's probably more comfortable at left.
I think he's the youngest in NFL history to start at left tackle.
Yeah.
He's not even 21.
Yeah.
So yeah, I also wanted to read off a couple stats, and I think most of them actually make the Lions presentation on Monday afternoon game look pretty good.
Yeah.
Some stats of the week for the Lions. The rushing yardage by direction for the running backs only. Left side, 13 attempts for 73 yards. That's over 5.6 yards per carry. And on the right side, 7 attempts for 20 yards, which is just 2.86 yards per carry. So significantly better on the left side towards Sewell. And I think that is something to be fond of. Also, Lions running backs average 4.0 rushing yards before contact per attempt, which was the second best in the NFL after week 1. However, their 0.8 rushing yards after contact was the third lowest.
Yeah, I mean, that's on the backs to an extent. I mean, obviously that's one, it's awesome that they were able to churn out 4 yards a carry before contact. So that means the line's getting it done. I mean, PFF will call it line yards.
Yeah.
To where it's like, okay, the line clearly took care of it at this point. So what that tells me is the backs either weren't making anybody miss in the second level, and 2, the blocks weren't getting to the second level and finishing the block. So I mean, it's 4 yards a carry. I'll take that out any day of the week.
Yeah, before contact, that's really good. Yeah,
especially because I feel like the backs are good enough eventually to probably start making some.
I think Jamal Williams is kind of been known as like the trucker too.
Yeah.
So, and I think DeAndre Swift coming out of Georgia was known to kind of bust some people too. So,
and I think a big thing too is, those are the kinds of things that we need to look at as far as like to stay positive. Because I don't think the wins are going to be there just because there's no playmakers. There's a couple good backs. I wouldn't consider either back elite, and then they're pretty good up front.
Mm-hmm.
And then the quarterback is experienced, and that's about it.
Well, he's a play action threat, and I think that opens up a little bit.
Guy, but in all actuality, teams are going to be able to take advantage of the Lions' problems all year long, and that's just the truth of it, and it is what it is. And we just have to look at things like this to stay positive. And as long as you continue to see things progressing and that type of stuff, the roster eventually will get better.
Mm-hmm.
That's the idea, at least.
Yeah. I'll give a negative one here so I can balance the positive ones when I read them. But Will Harris was the lowest graded safety after week 1 per PFF. I didn't want him out in the field anyway. I expected to see more of Dean Marlowe at the very least.
Yeah.
Give that a shot, but did not happen. So as a team, the Lions broke 5 tackles after reception in week 1, and that was the most in the NFL. So 5 tackles after a reception in week 1.
It doesn't sound like that many, but that's.
I know 5. Yeah, I don't know. I'll take it. The Lions have 200 yards of yak, most in the NFL.
I think a lot of that has to do with the amount of dump offs and tight end, passes.
Yeah, Hawkinson broke a couple too.
Mm-hmm.
So the other things to look at was to see the Lions being much more aggressive blitzing the quarterback. Compared to last year, they blitzed at the 3rd highest rate per Pro Football Reference. Unfortunately, they were still 4th worst in terms of pressure percentage on QB dropbacks.
Yeah, I mean, so what that tells me is there's the roster flaws right there. There's not a whole lot of pass rush there, and they have to generate any kind of pass rush is probably going to have to be generated via the blitz. And when an offense knows that, they'll be able to pick it up. So, there's not. That's the biggest deficiency. I think we're going to see teams be able to take advantage of the Lions on defense a lot more. I think the offense might, surprise you because you can do things on offense, to control the game and keep it a little closer. Kind of what they did, just safe passes, don't force anything. You can move the chains and just possess the ball doing that. Probably not going to lead to a lot of touchdowns, but you can do that to kind of keep the game closer. But the defense is just, they can't. I mean, the name of the game in the NFL is pressure on the quarterback, and it just doesn't happen with this team. And it's just, I don't really see that changing, at least this year.
Yeah. And the last ones I have here, tweeted out by the Detroit Lions PR. Following week 1, the Lions ranked second in the NFL with 7 plays of 20-plus yards and tied for second with 6 passes of 20-plus yards.
Nice.
Quarterback Jared Goff set a single-game team record with 38 completions.
Nice.
Those 38 completions also mark the most as a player has had in a team debut in NFL history.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, they threw the ball a ton. I mean, you saw they're incredibly. I mean, like you said, he had accuracy issues, yet he still completed 38 balls. So he didn't have a terrible game. I wouldn't say he had a great game, but he certainly held his own. He got better as the game went on. He was not good at the beginning. So he was just late on a lot of throws, just late and behind. And that's kind of the last couple of years I watched him, that was sort of his MO when he had less of a run game, because he was great in play action. But we'll see. I mean, I think he's going to get better as the season goes on, and he is what we have right now. So
with Tyrell Williams in concussion protocol, coach offensive coordinator Anthony Lynn told reporters today that Tom Kennedy will make his professional debut on Monday. And more snaps will likely be targeted for Amon-Ra St. Brown and Trinity Benson.
Nice.
Khalif Raymond also helped open up the field to the speed, so that was something to look at.
Yeah.
But they pretty much know who the wide receivers will be comes Sunday. Was that Monday? Is it Monday night or Sunday? Versus the Packers. I know it's an 8:20 game, so I'm just trying to remember Monday or Sunday. But I do want to ask, what do the Lions have to do to stay competitive?
Well,
I mean, Green Bay looked bad.
Yeah, so the Packers, it's Monday night game. The Packers obviously looked flawed. I think they're going to be better. They're going to look better against the Lions. The Packers kind of gotten to a point where they just were losing the field position game. I mean, I think Jameis Winston had 3 touchdowns at one point and only like 70 passing yards because everything was super short. They were playing on a short field. So, and that's what happens with turnovers and, things like that. Yeah. The Packers, I feel like, are probably going to maybe devote a little more time to the run game. My issue with the Lions is they don't really have anybody that can match up with any of the Packers playmakers. Devontae Adams didn't have a great game in the first game, but
it's going up against depleted.
Now he's going to go up against arguably maybe the worst secondary in the NFL. It's definitely bottom 2 or 3 probably, at least from a roster standpoint. So, I don't really expect a lot. What they have to do is possess the ball, keep the ball out of Rodgers' hands. He's going to have a better game. I would hope for his sake and my fantasy football team's sake. It's just one of those things where I don't expect a lot, but if they possess the ball, maybe force a few turnovers, they could probably keep it close. I think they
have to rely on the run game. Essentially, I think you're going to have to run the ball down their throats. Although the linebackers, we ranked as one of the worst for the Packers in the league, and I know the Lions linebackers aren't anything to be like, oh, sweet. Right. But I think if you can try to attack that second level, like they struggled, we mentioned with the stats, that 4 yards pop, if they can start getting to the second level too, and those Lions running backs can truck a little bit, then maybe there will be some success there. So I think if the running game is effective, they can hold a candle. You can't expect that kind of result that they had with the Saints, but keep it a little closer. Yeah, and then being in Lambeau, that's always. Thankfully, it's not in the heat of December in Lambeau. Yeah. So that's something we'll keep an eye on that. We'll definitely talk about it next week.